Always My Soulmate by Watermelon's Melon Felon. Chapter 21, Two-Toned, Part 2. Katsuki Yuri was mortified because one Victor Nikiforov was standing in front of him in his hometown's little ice rink, standing there as if he belonged, and that it wasn't strange for someone like him to be in Japan of all places. Yuri's eyes trailed over Victor's form now that they were in close quarters. Victor's hair was just like Yuri's, though the opposite sides were colored black, but still. And his eyes looked like Yuri's despite being shaped completely different to the younger teen's own eyes. "My little Kotonyok, it's a pleasure to meet you!" Yuri blinked, startled from his admiration when Victor leaned forward to grab his hands in a very personal gesture. Victor's English was very good, though his accent was pretty thick. Yuri was good at listening to and reading English, but his pronunciation was still off. Even speech classes took time away from skating, so he chose to skate more than learn how to properly form the foreign words. Clearing his throat, Yuri murmured a quiet and heavily accented, "Hello. You understand English, yes?" Yuri gave a nod. "Not the best at speaking, though," he said with a bit of a struggle. "That's okay. I'll teach you." He'll teach Yuri how to speak English better? Yuri just might faint. "Will you show me what you are practicing?" Almost breathless, Yuri turned to look at Yuko, who was not so subtly shaking her head with a very obvious yes. Takeshi was more calm about it with a firm nod, but still, it wasn't affirmative. "Okay," Yuri relented. "No laughing." "Never," Victor promised. "I want to learn everything about you, Yuri," he said, taking hold of Yuri's gloved hand again. "This is not a joking matter." Flushed and completely astounded, Yuri pulled away in order to take his position in the center of the rink. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Victor skate over to Yuko's side, where he smiled brightly and thanked her for bringing him inside. Once Yuri's friends and soulmates had taken up silent watch, Yuri breathed in deeply to calm his raging nerves. Sure, Victor Nikiforov, the current senior world champion, was in the ring with him. Sure, he was about to watch Yuri skate. But Yuri had been through more stressful things before, hadn't he? Tsubaki-sensei had once made him run around Hasesu's nature trails in barely any clothing to get back at him for eating an extra bowl of katsudan without permission. Therefore, if he could live through the embarrassment of that situation during something he was relatively okay at, then this situation with him doing something he was actually good at should be fine. That was what he told himself, at least. Yuko clicked the play button and the music began, Yuri raising his arms until his palms faced the ceiling, as if reaching for something he could not yet see. There was a trill on the harp, followed by a quick scale on the piano. Yuri twirled around, employing fast footwork immediately. Tsubaki-sensei and Minako-sensei had choreographed this routine together with the intent to use his limber body to its fullest potential. Both were extremely grateful at how open he was to their teachings and how he did not shun their ideas because of some fragile belief in masculinity. The only other males in his life were his father and Takeshi, so it wasn't like he had much experience to draw from for manliness. His father was on the smaller side and was a very meek man who preferred conversation to confrontation. Takeshi, on the other hand, was the toughest person Yuri knew. And Yuri wasn't like either of them. It was a generally well-known thing among people who took part in such intensive sports as gymnastics, skating, and ballet, that beginning your stretches at a young age would help you become more limber later on. Minako-sensei had Yuri doing full splits by the time he was 4, and ever since he had never once had a problem with stretches. Yuri could naturally raise both of his legs to a 75-degree angle without assistance. With help, he could stretch and bend enough to have his ankle hooked around the back of his neck without much trouble. Yuri was the kind of performer who liked things to look not only cool, but pretty. Male figure skaters weren't required to do the same things as the females, but Yuri preferred to do them because they were beautiful. Yuri had an adoration of beauty. It was why he started ballet. He'd seen Minako-sensei perform a small piece for a local talent show his parents had taken him to, and he had begged his parents to let him do ballet because he wanted to be pretty too. He was lucky that she was also an instructor and she did not spurn him for wanting to be the prima ballerina. So Yuri gladly skated with the girly spins and spirals because he liked them. because he was damn good at them. Because why shouldn't he? Yuri girded himself and went for the triple axel and landed it! Yes, the landing was shaky, but he landed it, and that was what was most important. He was going to tell his sensei when he got home. To end the short program, Yuri completed a full Bailman spin until the music slowed and stopped. The silence stretched on for a moment before Yuko's cheering echoed through the ring. Oh my Kami, that was your best run through yet! She screamed, hands clapping repeatedly. Takeshi was nodding. Not one fall, which is an improvement. Can you do it again? Cheeks puffed out in frustration. Yuri geared himself up to do just that when Victor joined him on the ice, suddenly capturing him into a hug. Not that he hadn't dreamed of such a thing before, because it was Victor, so duh. But they were practically strangers. Did non-Japanese people hug people they didn't know? Was this some kind of Russian custom that he was unaware of? It was so inspiring! The Russian announced, voice loud and full of excitement. You simply must allow me to train with you, Yuri! Yuri flushed at the informal address. He knew that Victor probably had no knowledge of Japanese traditions, but it was still a very intimate thing to do, to just call someone by their name when you barely knew them. If you would like, I very much would. We can talk and learn everything about each other that way. Victor's eyes sparkled, and instead of looking strange like people always told Yuri, they looked beautiful. Magical even, and he couldn't help but smile back. Victor's plan to stay in a hotel during his time in Japan was quickly taken over when his soulmate's mother, who he was secretly calling Mama Hiroko, learned of his plan and demanded that he stay at Utopia instead. The woman would not take no for an answer, and so Victor found himself staying with the Katsuki family. Victor greedily took in all the sights, pointing at everything he found to be interesting and asking Yuri to explain as best as he could. Of course, he got to meet Yuri's ballet instructor and skating coach, both of whom were world champions in their own passions and who are also fluent in English, making it easier to converse with Yuri if Victor said something too advanced for the other. Minako knew how to hold her liquor, and Tsubaki was a very serious person when card games came into play. Victor was certain that he dragged Yuri all over Hasetsu so they could bond and learn more about each other. He got to try real ramen, with all the little fixings and toppings that store-bought packets were missing. Yuri introduced him to the heaven known as katsudon, which was his mother's specialty. Victor got to try octopus for the first time, and it was delicious. Also, he might have taken a bit of an unhealthy liking to taiyaki filled with the sweet bean paste. Yuri, what is with the big building on top of the hill? Yuri turned to see where he was pointing. Shiro, he answered. Castle, Hasetsu Castle, was a ninja house once. Now it is a museum. Victor's attention was snagged immediately. Ninja house? As in the shuriken throwing people? His companion nodded vigorously. Hi! Many hidden rooms. Each November they have a Night of Terrors where the exhibit is closed and they hold a test of bravery. You sign up for a team and are given a map. The map takes you on one path where you face terrors. Sometimes you get lost in the secret rooms. You can only go once a year, so it's almost impossible to learn your way around. Victor appreciated Yuri's attempts to speak more English for him and wrapped a thankful arm around the other's shoulders. It sounds fun. Do you go? Hi! Yuri held up 5 fingers. 5 times! Were they all different paths? Hi! Amazing! Sugoi! Yuri corrected, and Victor repeated him a few times until he received a nod. Yuri, can we go to Ice Castle today? Yuri sent him a grin, and Victor took that as a yes. We bring Vic-chan on the walk next time, though. Of course! Victor nodded. He would never forget a darling pooch like Vic-chan, who was named for him. Never. What are you making, Yuri? Yuri flushed and gestured to the bowl. Victor leaned closer and opened his mouth expectantly. Slightly frustrated at his friend, Yuri scooped some rice and vegetables up and popped the chopsticks into Victor's mouth. Victor took a moment before a grin appeared. I like it! He leaned down to peck Yuri's cheek and whisper, It's not the only thing I like. You're just as bosithinky, Yuri. He didn't know what it meant, but he was blushing all the same. Victor had a way with words, no matter the language he spoke them in. It was decidedly unfair of him to use it as an advantage. I'm glad you like it. I simply must make you a pierogi. You'll love it. Victor proceeded to lean against the counter and tell Yuri all about the various foods he could stuff them with. His English slightly rough due to his excitement. But Yuri thought it was cute, so what did it matter? Victor was flushed, and as such a thing rarely ever happened, he wasn't sure of how to proceed. He'd walked into Yuri's room to fetch him for dinner. Mama Hiroko had asked him to get Yuri, and when he knocked, there had been no answer. When he entered, he found Yuri asleep with his little poodle, Vic-chan, resting on his stomach. The dog barely spared him a glance before continuing his rest. But Victor's gaze wasn't on the two slumbering cuties for long, because he was staring wide-eyed at the interior of the room. Said room that was covered in Victor Nikiforov paraphernalia. Posters of varying sizes littered the walls. There was a body pillow of him in Yuri's arms, stickers plastered to the wooden frame of Yuri's bed. He knew that Yuri admired him, but he hadn't known that it had gone this far. It was cute and also very flattering to know that his soulmate viewed him in such a way. And the most amazing part was how, despite the very obvious interest in Victor, judging by the placement of the posters on the ceiling even, Yuri never gave any of his hero worship away in person, as if he was a master of keeping a cool head in intense situations. Looking towards his soulmate, who was clutching the Victor body pillow in one arm and had the other looped around his poodle, Victor couldn't help but smile in admiration. Turning, he left the room quietly. He was certain Mama Hiroko would understand that Yuri deserved some rest. They could heat his bowl up later. Of all the things Yuri had expected during his next competition, he hadn't thought that Victor Nikiforov would be with Tsubaki-sensei waiting for him. He hadn't thought that Victor would actually travel to Canada with them, but then again, Victor was the type to shock people whenever he could. The Becca thrived on it after all. Something like this was a bold statement, and if the world did not get it just by looking at the two of them while they were stood beside one another, then Victor kissing Yuri's cheek before he went off to skate his short program certainly gave it away. This time, he was skating for far more than just a medal. He was proving a point to the world, as well as Victor. Yuri might be 4 years younger than the other skater, but he was certainly worthy enough to be a soulmate, and he wasn't going to let any further arguments get in the way of their friendship. With Tsubaki-sensei on his side, and Victor's instruction in his ear, Yuri had refined his performance greatly, and it was time to prove that he deserved to win his first junior world championship. Victor's mouth was open and gaping. Yes, he was very proud of his little kotonyok, but he hadn't expected Yuri to do so well. Yuri was an up-and-coming skater in the Japanese figure skating world. He was considered a threat by Yakov, of all people, which definitely meant that he was good. But to achieve a short program score higher than any score Victor had received when he skated for the singles junior division was amazing! Sugoi! He internally corrected himself. Anyway, Yuri stepped off the ice and straight into Victor's arms, receiving pats on the back from Tsubaki, who praised his technique. As the three sat in the kiss and cry, waiting for Yuri's scores, the boy had revealed that he had been thinking about practicing with Victor the entire time. As if Victor was right beside him on the ice, mimicking his routine like they had back in Hasetsu. And then the score came, and Victor didn't release Yuri for the rest of the evening. 101.79. This was a leap in the right direction. What if I fall? What if I twist my ankle? What if... Yuri's panicking was cut off by Victor, who was quick to slap a hand over the other's mouth. Yuri, you've done this routine hundreds of times. You've managed to perfect your jumps. There is no way you are coming out of this without the gold medal. Yuri pulled away. You don't know that. Anything can happen. True, but thinking about it isn't going to help you. Just think of me if you get nervous. Victor wrapped his arms around the younger skater and pulled into a bone-crushing embrace. Think of me. I know that while you're out there, I'm thinking of you as well. Yuri calmed down just a bit, face heated and breathing heavy from the panic attack that had reared its ugly head at the most unfortunate time in the early morning. Let's get you some tea. Are you hungry? Yuri shook his head. I might vomit. He ended up being fine. But he had a feeling that not eating had nothing to do with it. It was probably because Victor's one hand had trailed up into Yuri's hair and had begun playing with the dark strands while they sat on the sofa of their shared hotel room. Only a month and a half of knowing one another, and already Yuri was so dependent on the other. Victor was something else. You know, you're old enough to join the seniors division now. You can enter, and then we'd be competing against one another. Victor was seated behind his small soulmate, arms wrapped around the other's front while he ate his katsudon as a prize for winning the Junior World Championship. His gold medal was looped around his neck because, of course, Victor couldn't just let him hang it on the wall just yet. Victor was someone who greatly admired the idea of soulmates competing against each other in their sport. Also, it would be absolutely adorable to have his darling Yuri standing beside him, whether at his right by taking silver, or by his left to take the gold. Yuri swallowed around his bite of pork. Perhaps I'll certainly be old enough, but would they really take me seriously? I'll be one of the youngest in the season. Victor rubbed his cheek against his Kotonyok's head. Teach them to take you seriously. Ask Tsubaki to teach you the salchow. If you can do a triple axel and a triple flip, then the salchow should be easy for you. It's got a lower difficulty. Yuri hummed in acknowledgement. I'd very much like to skate against you someday, Victor murmured into the other's hair. Would we be able to train together even though we'll be opposing each other? Of course! Nothing could take me away from you. Yuri looked back in order to send Victor a small smile. You are I believe the term is dork. My dearest Yuri, I am wounded by such a claim. To pay his coat on your back, Victor tickled his sides, preventing him from finishing his katsudon while it was still warm. Victor looked at the screen of his mobile, lamenting at how small it was and how it didn't fit all of the names. Victor flicked through the various assignments, skipping his own name because it wasn't what he was interested in the most. Finally, his eyes caught the very name he was looking for. Katsuki Yuri, skating in the senior division for the first time. Victor smiled, pleased that Yuri had decided to go through with it. He would be Victor's most challenging opponent yet, and he was proud of that fact. Also, the shock it would put the world through was totally up Victor's alley. Rarely did soulmates compete against each other for fear of ruining their relationship. As both Yuri and Victor thrived on competition and skating together, be it as a pair or just doing the same routine on opposite sides of the rink, it didn't really pose a problem for them. Clapping his hands, Victor dialed Yuri's number. This season was going to be great!